Is this business healthy or just hiding chaos? So maybe you want to buy a business, or maybe you want to evaluate if your business is healthy. And on the surface, things look great. Solid revenue, loyal clients, a small but mighty team. But under the hood, you might be buying chaos, or you might be creating chaos and trying to scale it. I'm going to walk you through 7 hidden signs that a business isn't as healthy as it seems, whether you're evaluating your own business or evaluating someone else's. Because revenue is just the surface. Real business health, that's what we're diving in today. Ready? Let's dive in. So your business might look healthy. It might be doing a couple $100,000 in revenue, and you're like, I've got this. But really, when we look under the hood, there are some signs that your business isn't as healthy as it seems. Signs that would maybe prevent you from scaling, prevent you from even hitting your revenue numbers over and over again, or also prevent someone else from being able to buy your business. So in this video, we're going to walk through 7 signs that are below the surface, because again, that high revenue number might not result in ongoing revenue, profit, cash, or something you can actually own. So red flag number 1, the business is not actually profitable or generating sustainable cash. So let's start with the big illusion, profitability. A business can look profitable on paper, but when you dig in, things fall apart. For example, it might be profitable on paper, but there's a lot of debt in the business. Or it might look profitable on paper because the owner's salary isn't part of the profit. So if their business is an LLC and they make $50,000 at the end of the year from a revenue perspective, and the owner's salary is not part of their expenses, that's not a particularly profitable business. The owner isn't even getting paid market salary. Here's another example. I once looked at a business making $450,000 a year top line, which was great, but they spent all their money on ads. The owner was underpaying themselves. The team was underpaying themselves. And there was no cash being set aside for growth or reserves, or not even for taxes. Just because it makes a lot of money, maybe even because it makes some revenue, doesn't mean it's sustainable, healthy business for you to buy or for you to scale. If you're a buyer, ask if owner salary is included in expenses, and ask how much. Ask if there's debt repayments that are part of the cash flow. Ask if they set aside amount for estimated taxes. Ask what their cash reserves are. These are really important to know. Am I buying something that's actually sustainable, or am I just buying high revenue but also high expenses? And then again, for soloists, you might look profitable, but if you are not able to save, you are not able to put money in a cash buffer account, things look good on the surface, but you're not actually paying yourself a market wage. You couldn't replace yourself if you needed to, and the business isn't doing more than just covering expenses. So that's a business that might have revenue, but isn't sustainable. That's red flag number 1. Red flag number 2 could be in the client roster. So yeah, revenue looks great, but what's the health of their client roster? This tells you more than their financials ever will. So 1, founder-centric clients. If all of the clients came from the founder's personal network, which if you're the founder, that's great that you can make that for your network for yourself. But if you're trying to buy a business and there's no marketing and sales process and system that doesn't rely on someone's personal network, what are you really buying? Also, they might have high revenue, but if that's all dependent on 1 or 2 clients or super concentrated in the industry, you might have a problem with whale clients. If one of those clients were to leave you, you don't have a sustainable book of business, you have 1 client. So this is really important. What's the composition of the client roster? How diversified is that? Again, like that might be a super niche industry, but then you have to be okay with if that industry changes and that industry gets hit, how are you going to be able to, recoup and make up those clients if the industry as a whole, what you do as a whole gets hit? So how diversified is your client base? And then also, how frequently are new leads and prospects coming in? If they've had a stagnant roster for, maybe they've had clients since they started who have been with them for a long time, but haven't had a new client in ages, well, you can guarantee that something is off in or non-existent. And again, like the ongoing in marketing and sales. This is a common story for a lot of business owners. So they have a group cohort that comes in maybe to learn how to be a coach. And then those people take the intro sales class. And then those people take the next sales class. At some point, though, that cohort of people is going to either solve their problems or graduate from the relationship, or it's not going to work and they're going to take a step back. But that could look like a couple of really solid years of great revenue, but then actually no people have entered in the ecosystem for a couple of years now. So if this is you, high revenue, even business profit may disguise the fact that you're not bringing in new clients and that the ongoing marketing and sales process isn't working for you. So again, if they all rely on your personal network as the founder, it means it's hard to sell. If you're over reliant on 1 to 2 clients or super niche in a particular industry that might be prone to disruption, that's a signal. And then if your client roster is stagnant, like you haven't had a new client in a while, these are all things that from a client roster would signal a red flag. So that's number 2. Number 3 is you want to dig a little more into the sales system. So if the entire business relies on the founder bring a thought leader, the founder bring a brand asset, the founder doing speaking engagements. If it all relies on the founder, again, going back to number 2, personal clients, that's not a marketing and sales system that if you were to take a step back from the business as a soloist, or if you were to try to sell the business, if it all relies around your personal brand and not a business brand or other business assets, when the founder takes a step back, whether that's you or somewhere else, the entire marketing system falls apart. So one founder told me, never had to do marketing, people just find me. That sounds great until you need to hire, take leave, raise prices, and then maybe the well runs dry. You want to look at how they're gaining exposure, but also what are the systems set up on the back end? If there's no CRM, there's no lead qualification process, you're really gambling on the founder's reputation. Again, if that's you and you want to take a step back or you want to buy a business, what's the power of the brand and the power of the marketing and sales systems, not just the power of the founder? And speaking of founders, we have red flag number 4, which is key person dependency. If the way that you get the results is all from a secret process that's in your head that is not repeatable, it will be hard to replace. But also this applies to some of your employees. If you have contractors who have a secret sauce, don't document anything down, everything's sort of a black box back there, this poses risk to you as the owner, but also to risk to anyone who is buying your business. So if someone's buying something that they can't replicate because it is heavily reliant on what your particular skills are as the founder, an employee's particular skills, or processes that aren't documented, there's a big risk, again, to your resilience as a business owner, but also a risk to what someone will buy. What are they really buying from you if everything that you do is very in your head, secret sauce, not written down, or trapped in the heads of one of your employees? If you were to buy a business, or if you are running your business, trying to scale a business and someone leaves, how big of a risk is that going to be to the business? An employee might walk out with a bunch of your clients, which does happen, but you have an employee walk out with some intellectual property, or even if you retain the legal assets of things, if you don't know what they do and they walk out, or no one on the team knows what else they do and they walk out, you're in a world of hurt. So again, thinking about cross-training, thinking about documenting your intellectual property, thinking about making sure you have exquisitely strong, accurate protections for those things is really important, whether you're trying to scale or whether you're trying to sell. Speaking of intellectual property, the next red flag number 5 is, what are you actually buying? So when someone wants to sell a business, they're like, I want to sell a business. Are you selling a client roster? Again, it could be like transactional things like an accountant. Like they don't necessarily have proprietary processes, but they have a roster. Are you buying intellectual property? Are you buying an asset that can be reused over and over? Are you buying an audience? Are you buying a referral system? Or are you buying vibes and spreadsheets? Again, what are you actually buying? And is this legally protected? When you are trying to scale your business, again, what are they scaling? Are you scaling your time? Are you scaling your time as a founder? Or are you scaling repeatable courses and assets and things that can generate revenue that is somewhat decoupled by the amount of time you put in? I've seen done for you service businesses try to sell without clarifying their IP ownership. They get into legal issues. They don't have the right copyrights. They are trying to sell a business based on assets they don't own, or clients don't want to move to a new business because they have something written in their contracts that say, there's something written in their contracts. Again, not a lawyer. Check with your intellectual property lawyer, check with your business lawyers, but make sure that if your clients, are they locked into their agreements? If the ownership changes hands, like what does that look like? Again, what is someone buying? And again, as you as the business owner, Do you have the rights to those assets, or are you just having a good relationship? Speaking of ongoing revenue, we get to red flag number 6, revenue that can't repeat. So again, another sneaky red flag. Sometimes that revenue, good revenue, comes from a one-time event. So a copywriter may have made 200,000 in a year, but 90,000 of that came from a single product launch. They've already hit their list with that. So if they're not growing their list on a regular basis, is that revenue repeatable? Again, like with that coach who had people go through a cohort program and wasn't doing the marketing to get new people in the door, was just kind of relying on the laurels of the people who'd come before. That's not regular repeatable revenue. So if this business you're buying relies on one-time purchases of new courses that someone has to create, that's not recurring revenue for you or for someone that's buying your business. So again, things that you want to look for: is there a business backend that is a service that is repeatable, sustainable, people stay in for long periods of time? There's a reason why people look for monthly and annual recurring revenue. Payment plans are different than a consumable service that people are buying over and over again and continue to find utility and value in. So selling lots of payment plans, not sustainable revenue, especially if it's on a one-time course. Having to launch something new over and over and over again because you don't have something that's recurring, that means that someone has to create the new thing and launch the new thing while also growing the audience to try to sell the old thing that they've created. It's a lot. For you as a founder, do you have recurring sources of revenue? And for you as a buyer, do they have recurring sources of revenue that are not payment plans, one-time purchases, or reliant on someone creating something new in order to keep revenue high? We want to look at the business model on the back end. Our final red flag is decision bottlenecks. Who decides what gets done and when? If everything flows through one person, you're not really building a business, you're building a job. That's fine if you want to build a business that you stay in and keep working in. That is fine if you want to build a business that you keep. It is really challenging if that's then wants to be a business you want to step away from as you scale, or a business that is sellable. So if only the founder can make decisions, if all decisions have to be run through the founder, if all the work has to be done by the founder, so you're an executive coach, you want to sell the coaching, but if you are the one doing all the coaching and you haven't trained people to coach on your behalf, as part of a system, then you have created a very well compensated job. And that is totally fine. But that means it's difficult to scale. It means it's difficult to sell because, again, what are they buying? Are they just buying your client roster? So these are things that, as the business grows and as the business continues to build, these are questions to ask. Am I trying to build to scale? Which would mean that some of these 7 red flags need to be resolved before I can scale. If I'm trying to sell the business, all of these red flags need to be established as well. So as you're looking to grow, as you're looking to scale, as you're looking to potentially sell, it's really important that the structural underpinnings of your business are solid enough for you to be able to do that. Because most businesses don't fall apart because they're not making money. They fall apart because they are structurally fragile. So whether you're thinking about buying that business or trying to grow your own, these 7 signs will show you whether you're building on solid ground or are at risk of a structural failure. So here's a checklist. So 1, is the profit sustainable? Because everyone in the business is making the appropriate amount of money, including the owner. The business is profitable enough to set aside cash for a rainy day, including 3 to 6 months of operating expenses, and all taxes have been paid, and you're very clear on the debt in the business. So that's 1, are profits sustainable, not just extractive? 2, is the client rostered, diversified, and transferable? Have they come in through a system that didn't rely on the founder, didn't rely on the founder's charisma, have actually come in and are not 1 to 2 clients? 3, is there a repeatable sales engine that, again, does not rely on the founder unless you want to keep your business and scale your business through yourself? That's fine. But is there a repeatable sales engine that keeps working even if you get sick or if you sell the business? 4, are the systems in the business designed to outlast the founder because you've mitigated key man risk? You've documented assets, you've documented your secret sauce, all your systems and processes are codified and they aren't trapped in the heads or hearts of employees. Are the real assets documented and transferable? Do you own what you are planning to sell or scale? Can revenue be repeated? Again, just because there's high revenue doesn't mean the business infrastructure is set up for recurring, repeatable revenue. And then finally, are decisions stuck with one person? These are not deal breakers if you are not trying to scale your business beyond yourself. If you want to build a team, keep doing what you're doing, I would address some of these red flags. I would make sure you're actually making money, that you have a diversified client roster and a predictable sales engine. But you may actually be fine with decisions landing on your desk and staying on your desk. You may be fine with not having quite as much documented because you're not planning to sell. But if you are planning to scale any part of delivery or thinking about long-term, is this a saleable asset? Is this a business that I could sell? And if you're a buyer, is this a business you can buy? These are all really important questions to understand whether or not you are buying chaos, buying smoke and mirrors, or trying to scale something with unsustainable foundations. If you want to assess the health of your own business, take my free business systems assessment. It's designed to help solo business owners spot hidden risks, strengthen their foundations. You can find that linked in the show notes below. And if you got value from this, let me know. Give me a like, subscribe, drop a comment. Which of these red flags do you think is overlooked the most? Looking forward to helping you build healthier businesses.